Well, it's sure good to be back here. This is the first time I've been back since COVID, so it's good to see all of you here. We have a very special speaker today, Eric Hovind. He's a good friend, and I think a lot of you are familiar with him, but some of you, this might be your first time at DSA, or if you're watching live, maybe you don't know Eric. So Eric is the president of Creation Today Ministries. It's a creation science and evangelism ministry. And they have a huge heart for everyone, for the lost, for the saved, for everyone. And several years ago, I think it's about 5 or 6 years ago, Eric asked me to be his co-host on the Creation Today show. And I think a lot of you got to see our Battleship Apologetics episodes, Season 5 and Season 6. If you haven't seen them, you should see them. But Eric is a very genuine person with a huge heart and love for everyone. And I just want all of us to give him a great, warm DSA welcome.
Thank you, Marianne. You didn't even clap. Thank you. My name is Eric. What's your name? What is it? Evan, pleasure to meet you, sir. Wow, that is quite the handshake. Relax that thing a little bit. My name is Eric Hovind. I'm from Pensacola, Florida, and it is great to hang out with you guys today. I'm loving that shirt right there. I need to get me one. That is fantastic. I got to go flying, and my daughter got to go flying with John Pike yesterday. Oh, my goodness. You guys have some pretty country up here. Do you guys already know that? Is that already? You guys are already aware of how beautiful it is? I mean, I like Florida. I like the beach, but we get up here, just driving, my daughter and I are driving like, wow, oh, look at that valley. And it's just, we don't have valleys in Florida. We don't know what a valley is in Florida. Flat, man, nothing to it. And I love doing what I do. I love traveling and presenting the truth about God and creation. And then more than that, and my goal here this morning, just so you know, if you want to take a nap, I'll go ahead and tell you the end goal so that you can wake up and be like, I got it, okay, here it is. Man, I want you to see God today like you've never seen him before. So we'll start off with a little bit of science, then we're going to go into a little bit of God, and I'm hoping that your and my little bitty brain will go and just kind of explode on how awesome our Creator actually is, because I think we lose sight of that. Our goal as a ministry is to turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones. See, that we find that there's lots of things that trip people up and keep them from coming to Christ, to the cross, to the death, the burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so what I'm convinced of and what I've studied for years is that, wow, the more you look at this, the more you realize those stumbling blocks that keep people from coming to Christ, once they have a little bit more information, those turn into stepping stones. And all of a sudden people realize, wow, that's actually the pathway to Christ. I can trust the Bible. God did create the heavens and the earth. There really is a good God. We're worried about evil in the world. The question is, why is there good in the world? That doesn't make sense. And you turn these stumbling blocks that keep people from Christ into stepping stones on their journey to Christ. I've got an amazing wife, Tanya. We've been married for 22 and a half years. I am thrilled to death that she said yes all those years ago and hasn't changed her mind since. Oh, yes. I'm doing good. Well, God has blessed us with 3 amazing children, Stephanie, Angie, and Jordan. They are 14, 17, and 19. And last week, I got to tell you, I'm kind of coming off of a busy week. Last week, I preached 22 times in 7 days. It was like we hit 4 different schools, 1 public middle school, 4 Christian schools, a public middle school, 3 secular universities, either the largest or the second largest. I think they're in competition with Ohio State, but Florida's FUC, FCU, Florida Central University. Anyway, I was at a university, forgive me, been kind of busy, Valencia College, and then Florida East, FE, anyway, at another college. I had a great time. It's been a busy week, 3 different churches, and I ended up having to do an all-nighter. I ended up driving down to Orlando during the night because I had to stay in town for what was about to happen. Supposed to leave at noon on Saturday, head down to Orlando, and I stayed all the way till 7 o'clock and then drove down to Orlando because, can I just show you what happened at about 6 o'clock on Saturday night? Can I show you what happened? This happened. Check this out. I'm going to cry all over again. Oh, my word. Some of you already know the joy of experiencing a daughter and getting engaged. And some of you, it wasn't joy. It was, I'll get you, buddy. And we're blessed. Michael Thompson is a youth pastor there in Pensacola, Florida, and has liked her since she was in 10th grade in high school. And it's just now it's a beautiful love story. You get to look forward to one of those one day. Wait a couple more years, okay? Couple. All right? You can go ahead and start looking, though. You know, that's I advise that. All right? Start looking around. So my daughter Angie is with me. That's Stephanie's little sister, and Angie set that whole engagement thing up for Michael, and it was just pretty cool. Angie, you did a good job. That was really good. That was really, really good. So we're blessed as a family. We're just we've loved every stage of life. I mean, I've loved when my kids were kids like you. I love that because you guys are rascals, man. You guys will try things. You guys want to wrestle. You guys want to fight. And I'm like, yeah. My 14-year-old still wants to do that. And I'm like, oh, hang on. I'm hurt. Okay, easy, buddy, easy. I've loved every stage of life. And so really, really enjoying where God has us right now. We are in Pensacola, Florida, right there, not too far away, as long as you compare it to the moon. And the reason we do this is to change people's worldview. I want people coming to Christ. I want them to know who God is. There's nothing more important than that. Now, I brought a science experiment with me. I was going to see if I can get this thing working, though. Sometimes after, we can do it. Okay, good. Does anybody know who this guy is right here? His name is on the screen. Does anybody know who this guy is right here? Anybody? Does anybody know who this guy is right here? Dan, you are exactly right. 10 points for you. Put those in your pocket. Daniel Bernoulli. Now, something tragic. I hate to bring this up, at such a nice time of the day with it nice and cozy inside here and cold outside, but something tragic happened to Daniel Bernoulli. Guess what happened to him? He did. He died. He is deader than a doornail right now, okay? The dude is 6 feet under and has been there for a long time. Now, he lived several hundred years ago, so we knew it was bound to happen at some point. But before he died, he discovered what we now call the Bernoulli principle. Write this down. You're going to want to know what this is, okay? So jot this down real quick. You guys didn't come prepared to take notes? You're not going to remember anything I say. Guys, are you serious? You think it's going to stay right there? It's not going to stay right there, man. This leaks, okay? I've learned that. You guys aren't, and you're not going to write that down. Okay, fine. But anyway, it's really cool. He discovered the Bernoulli principle. Basically, what he discovered is that a moving air or a moving fluid has a lower pressure than air that is not moving. So if you have air that's moving, it creates a low pressure or a vacuum almost, and high pressure automatically wants to go to low pressure, okay? You're like, well, who cares? Well, it just so happens that is the very principle on which we are able to fly, right? It's not sucking the airplane up in the air, but the wing shape actually creates a low pressure on top of the wing, high pressure under the wing, and the pressure under the wing pushes the aircraft into the air, and John took us up, and thank you for keeping us up and flying us safe yesterday. We appreciate that. So we got to do that. And what's kind of cool is he actually discovered that you can actually create a low pressure zone with something like this. And all we have here is we went to the neighbor's house and grabbed his trash can. He was really nice. He said we could borrow it. Didn't tell him what we were going to do to it, but we ended up cutting a hole in the bottom of it. And then we're staying at Marianne and Marianne's house, and we're like, hey, can I borrow the shower curtain? So we grabbed her shower curtain, and that worked out really nice to put right here. And then we put some duct tape on here, and then somebody is going to lose a load as they drive down the road because we got the ratchet strap right here. But anyway, if you get those three things, you can make your own Taurus cannon. You pull back right here on this tab, and you just push it forward like that. That's all there is to it. But here's what's actually happening. When I push it forward like that, the air coming out of the end of this actually exits, and the ring, the lip, holds the outside air. The inside air goes out, and it actually creates its own little internal turbulence in a torus, the shape of a donut. It creates an air donut, which is kind of cool because according to Bernoulli's principle, which if you would have wrote down, you would have understood this. According to Bernoulli's principle, that moving circle of air is low pressure, and the air that's not moving is high pressure. So it actually keeps that column of air, that torus, in a perfect shape as it goes through the high pressure air. So you won't see this happen until I put some fog in it, but what's actually happening, whoa, what was that? What in the world? What's actually happening? Did you feel that? I need long hair. Oh, okay, ready? Yeah, hit that right in the forehead. Okay, here we go. What's actually happening is you're actually creating a torus. And I can show you what the torus looks like. Check this out. This is just fun. So you guys feel free to do this at home with a neighbor's trash can and mom's shower curtain, okay? Hopefully we can get some... No, I was wondering if this was one of them fog machine churches because I fit right in. I go to all kinds, and some are none, some are yes, and I just go, okay, whatever. All right, we got to hope this works. I might have to have a volunteer come hold this button down and see. Come on, baby. You can do it. It's thinking. It's thinking about it. Didn't we just see smoke come out of this? I thought we were good to go here. Output all the way up. Duration all the way up. Time interval all the way down. Oh, it wasn't plugged in all the way. Leave it to me to do something like that. Oh, does it produce smoke? All right, check this out. This is so cool. Ready? Ready? How cool is that? Oh, now you can see it coming, can't you? Boom! That is awesome, isn't it? Yes. Oh, yeah. How many of you want to go borrow the neighbor's trash can now, huh? If you don't have a fog machine, that's about 10 packs of cigarettes right there. So good luck with that. Boom. Did you feel it? There. Oh, yeah, that was a good one. We can play with this more later, but Bernoulli's principle, man, I mean, if he didn't discover that, we couldn't have fun in church like this today. This is awesome. I'm so glad Daniel Bernoulli discovered that. It makes me wonder, with all you, how many of you in here are 16 or under? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. 16 years or under. If you don't know the answer, just raise your hand, because you are, okay? Man, makes me wonder, hey, what other cool principles are out there that God is going to let somebody discover, and you might be the one that discovers them? That would be incredible. Imagining discovering something that lets somebody in church have a lot of fun with people years from now. I mean, that's just kind of neat, right? No? Yeah? No? Yeah? You think you could discover anything? Yeah? Yeah? You think? Yeah? Yeah? You want to discover something that God, I think that'd be awesome, man. I think it'd be awesome if you guys get out there and study science. Science, how many of you guys like science? Does anybody like science? How many of you science was not your favorite subject in school? Okay, I understand. Do you guys happen to know what science actually means? What does science mean? Oh, a lot of you got it. It means knowledge. How many of you want knowledge? You want to be smart? You want to be smart? You didn't raise your hand. You're like, I don't know. Sounds like a lot of responsibility, you know. Science is knowledge, and I think it'd be great if you were smart. It'd be great if you were brilliant, if you worked hard and exercised that mind that God gave you and discovered things about God's world. I think that's awesome. Hey, there's basically two worldviews to how the world got here, and this will determine kind of how you see life, what you see happening around the world today. Some people look at the world and they say, you know what, the world was made from a big bang. Nothing created everything. I go, well, wait a minute. I think God created the heavens and the earth. So where did the universe actually come from? You got the people that say a big bang made it. This is called the evolutionary or the humanist worldview. And you have people that say, no. There's an incredible designer. God designed this world. That torus, these donuts, these mathematical donuts, or these toruses, these actually follow mathematical laws and mathematical principles. And a lot of the great scientists of the past, they wanted to discover God's design in the universe. They were creationists that wanted to see, how did God actually do this? What is behind this? What is the mind of God in discovering everything about the world? There's two basic worldviews. You get to choose which one you believe in. The creationist worldview says, it's a little cut off there, but it says about 6,000 years ago is when God created the heavens and the earth. 4,400 years ago, there was a flood. And I think I've asked this before. Does anybody happen to know how many of each animal did Moses take on the ark? How many of each animal? 2. That is actually not correct. I'm sorry. You want to go again? You want to try again? How many of each animal did Moses take on the ark? Give it another shot. 3. Nope, that is not correct either. How many of each animal did Moses take on the ark? Come on. You can get it. You can get it. You got this, man. We're all rooting for you. Any other numbers come to mind, or 2 was the main one that you were thinking? 4. Nope, that's not correct. You want to try 7? 8. Nope, that's not correct. You want to try 7? 7. Nope, that's not correct either. You want to try any other numbers? 9. Nope. How many of each animal did Moses take on the ark, guys? 0. Moses didn't even build the ark, dude. Noah is the one who built the ark. That was good, wasn't it? So about 4,400 years ago, Noah built the ark, and you're right about the 2, okay? But 2 and then 7 of the clean. So, just your Sunday school class 2 years ago, that did pay off, okay? Noah built the ark, put all the animals on board. 2,000 years ago, who lived here? Actually, a whole bunch of people, but Jesus is like the main one that we focus on, okay? Jesus Christ. And now here we are today waiting for the return of Christ, okay? Compare that to what the evolution worldview teaches, and it's not the same thing. Now, I've been having conversations, and I got some more conversations coming up with people who disagree with me on this and try to bring the idea that the earth is old and the idea that the Bible is true and try to bring them together. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work scientifically, and it doesn't work theologically when it comes to the Bible. I don't have time to get into that right now, but it doesn't work. So some people would say, no, there was a big bang. Somewhere between 13 and 20 billion years ago, there was a big bang. Here we go. 13 to 20 billion years ago, there was a big bang. Now, kids, what do you think they say exploded for the big bang? What do you think they say exploded, guys? What do you think they say exploded? Come on, some kid tell me. What exploded? In order to create the entire universe, what would have to explode? A cell. No, that's way too big, man. We're trying to create the universe, okay? What exploded to create the whole universe? Nothing. That's more like it. Yes, nothing created the whole universe. And then after nothing exploded. Now, don't you dare question them. That's science right there, okay? Don't you dare I see you smirking and laughing right there. That's scientific information. After nothing exploded and created everything, not a lot happened for a while. Then 4.6 billion years ago is when the earth cooled down. So the ball of dirt that we're on right now, it got together because, it just got together 4.6 billion years ago, and it formed. And then it began to rain on the surface of the earth, and it rained for millions and millions and millions of years. Have you guys ever been to the beach, ever seen the oceans? See, that's proof that it rained for millions of years because there's oceans out there, okay? So it rained for millions of years, created the oceans. Then, this is incredible, the oceans, have you ever played in the waves, how they kind of mix with the rock right there, and it's kind of just over and over? The waves of the ocean mixed with the rock right there and created something called soup. Soup. No, it gets better, 3 billion years ago, guys, lightning struck the soup. And the soup came alive. And then, it gets better. Then the soup found someone to marry. You do it. Good. And they got married and had kids. And their kids had kids, 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 and guess what? Their kids had kids, and their kids had kids, and then guess what? Their kids had kids, and their kids had kids, and then guess what? Their kids had more kids, and their kids had more kids, and eventually they turned from a little amoeba into the fish, then the amphibians, then the reptiles, and then the mammals. And they turned into these mammals, and then they turned into ape-like creatures, and then these ape-like creatures around 3 million years ago decided, a couple of them anyway, decided we don't want to be ape-like creatures anymore. That sounds really negative. We want to be something different. And so a boy ape stood up, and a girl ape was like, I'm going to be different too. And he was like, hey, I like that. And she was like, well, you're the only one standing up. I'll take you. And they got married and had kids, and it was the first human beings. For real. Why are you laughing at that? And that happened around 3 million years ago. Now, here we are today, mankind, after 3 billion years of life on planet Earth and 3 million years of human evolution. Now, you get to choose which worldview you believe in. You can believe in the beginning God created it, or you can believe in the beginning nothing. Because you can't use the word created. Nothing exploded, and it didn't create it. It just, it's real hard to understand if you're not a scientist, okay? It's just you got to be a scientist. I believe in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, okay? That's what I believe. Does anybody know what's on the screens right there? What is that a representation of? Does anybody know? Come on, in this conversation, there's going to be a lot of people that know. Oh, now the word's on the screen. Anybody know what that is right there? A representation of. What is it? The geologic column. Yes, the geologic column. I did a survey on Instagram because I was about to do a show with Dr. Andrew Schnelling on the geologic column. It's on our website. And I was like, I was blown away. Most people did not know what the geologic column was. Said, hey,
I'm asking people today if they've ever...
I went out and did interviews on the streets and was asking people. I thought, okay, this will be good. Hey, do you know what the geologic column is? Yes. Okay, and I was about to, take them down this line of reasoning about the geologic column. But yet most of them said they had no idea.
I'm asking people today if they've ever heard of the geologic column. You ever heard of the geologic column?
I have not. Never.
No idea what that is? Have you ever heard of the geologic column?
No, I have not.
What is the geologic column?
I've never heard of it.
I have absolutely no idea.
No idea?
I have no idea.
Do you know what the geologic column is?
Nope.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Do you remember ever seeing a picture in school of all the layers to the earth? Not like the core and the mantle and the crust, but like at the Grand Canyon, all those different layers.
Oh, yeah.
So you've seen all those? The what now?
Like sediment?
Yeah, all the different layers of sediment. When we put those together from around the world, we call that the geologic column.
So that's the geologic column. I did this awesome interview with Dr. Andrew Schnelling. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it today, about the conversation we had. But I couldn't believe it. I went on Instagram, and 60% of people said they didn't know what the geologic column was. I was like, well, we got to back up here. Because the geologic column is a big, big, big deal, okay? You need to know about the geologic column. It is a big deal. It's all the layers that they add up together from around the world that make up, the chart of all the different layers around the world, okay? You guys have seen those before. You guys know what we're talking about, okay? The geologic column. Here's the deal. The geologic column is responsible for convincing billions of people that the earth is 4.6 billion years old. It's responsible for that. And so the truth about the geologic column and why it's so important, what is the truth about the geologic column and why is it so important to you today? Because what modern science teaches is that the bottom layer, all the way down at the bottom, that formed first, and then over millions of years, the next layer formed on top of that, and then over millions of years, the next layer formed on top of that, and this is responsible for teaching billions of people around the world that the earth is 4.6 billion years old. You know, it's interesting, in the Bible, you need me to go back to that? Did you get that? You good? Okay, all right. In the Bible, in 2 Peter chapter 3, it says, knowing this verse, there shall come in the last days scoffers, people who are going to make fun of the Bible. And it says the scoffers are going to walk after their own lusts. By the way, quick little side note, the reason people scoff at the Bible is always because of sin. It's not because of science. I'll say that again for the men, because men have to hear things twice. Men have to hear things twice. The reason people scoff at the Bible is never because of science. It's always because of sin. Every single time. So these scoffers are going to come in the last days, and they're going to say, where's the promise of his coming? Hey, since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation. They're going to teach this idea of uniformitarianism, and that's what they're teaching today, this idea of uniformitarianism. It says they're going to be willingly ignorant. I love the way my dad said it. He said, son, if you look that up in the Greek, it means dumb on purpose. Willingly ignorant. They're going to be willingly ignorant of three different things. Number one, that by the word of God, the heavens were of old. God created the heavens and the earth, and they were mature. They're not old, they're just mature. And the earth was standing out of the water and in the water, how God originally created the heavens. They're going to be ignorant of that, the original creation. They're going to be willingly ignorant of the flood that destroyed the world. And they're going to be willingly ignorant of the coming judgment of God. Three things: creation, flood, coming judgment of God. Why would they be willingly ignorant of these things? Well, they're willingly ignorant of the creation because if there's really a creation, that means there is a creator. That's exactly right. And if there really is a creator, he's got the right to judge his creation. And they're willingly ignorant of the flood because they don't like the idea of a God who created everything judging his creation. And then they're willingly ignorant of the coming judgment of God because, man, I want to live my life how I want. I don't want there to be somebody I am responsible to one day. I don't want that responsibility. I'll live life for myself. Well, James Hutton wrote a book in 1795 called Theory of the Earth. And in his book, Theory of the Earth, that's when he introduced the idea that the earth was billions of years old. Much older than what we originally thought. That historically it was, there were people that thought it was old, but they never really kind of put numbers on it. Hutton came along and started teaching the idea that the earth was old rather than young. And then Sir Charles Lyell invented the gap theory, invented the geologic column in 1830 in his book, Principles of Geology. So the church actually adopted the idea that the earth was old before they ever even invented the geologic column. Now, they knew there were layers to the earth, but nobody had ever put them together like Charles Lyell did. And then in 1859, Darwin comes along and introduces his idea of evolution. And people didn't reject it because they thought, well, the earth is old. And the layers of sediment, the geologic column proves that the earth is old. So, yeah, all those fossils found in all those layers, that is evidence. That's evidence that evolution is true. It was in 1804 that Thomas Chalmers first introduced an idea called the gap theory and then wrote about it in a book 10 years later. Maybe there's a gap between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, and that's where all the time fits in. Again, I don't have time to go into this, but it just doesn't work. And I can prove that because the geologic column was not laid down slowly over millions of years. How many of you guys know what this is right here? That is the Grand Canyon, and boy, is it grand. How many of you have visited the Grand Canyon? Anybody been there? How many of you have not been, but you want to go? You'd love to, oh, good. I lead a trip there every year. Would love to take you guys on my trip to the Grand Canyon. It's amazing. And I've been doing that for 10 years. Well, this last year, I got invited to actually, instead of just going to the rim and then we do like a 17-mile trip on the river, but we don't hit any major rapids because once you go past the spot where we get out, you don't get out for 10 days. So it's like a long trip. And I'd never gotten to do from where we get out Lee's Ferry the 10-day trip down the river until this summer. Oh, man. They have the most awesome rapids in the world in the Grand Canyon. It is spectacular. I got to go all the way down the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. Absolutely amazing. I think I've got a video. Let me see here. Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you want to go with me, we throw it up on our website. This next year, we'll be doing that. This is it. Check this out. 28 guys. I was one of 28 guys. We're there with Andrew Snelling of Answers in Genesis, Dr. Terry Mortensen of Answers in Genesis, and it is a blast. There's no hotels, no gas stations, no restaurants. You stop on the side and you set up tents if you want, or cots, and you sleep on the sandbars there, and you hit some of the biggest rapids available. They don't have a scale of 1 to 6, which is what most people have for scales of rapids. Theirs goes 1 to 10, and we hit over a dozen scale 10 rapids. It was absolutely, absolutely beautiful. Then you get helicoptered out. Oh, how many of you would want to do that with me? Would that be, oh my goodness. I got some adventurers out here. I love that. It truly was an amazing experience. Soul searching. You're there with no connection, no internet, no cell phone for 10 days. Some people were going through withdrawal, okay? It's like, I mean, man, you could just see it on their face. It's crazy. Well, we started our journey down the Colorado River, and we were in the Kaibab limestone, that Kaibab all the way up there at the top. And they say the Kaibab limestone is 270 million years old. Well, as we went day after day after day, we got all the way down. We went down through the Colorado River, down the Colorado River, but the ground around us was actually rising up. And we got to go see more of the layers to the Grand Canyon. Got to the Toro Weep, Coconino Sandstone, Hermit Shale, Supai Group, Red Wall Formation. So by like the 7th and 8th day, we're all the way down here. We even got all the way down to the Great Unconformity, all the way down here. An incredible, incredible experience. And we were there to see a couple very, very interesting sights. By the way, every time you get off the raft, this is what you do. Sorry, that's kind of embarrassing. Okay, so you're there and you're going down through all these. Well, I got to go there with Dr. Andrew Schnelling and Dr. John. I keep wanting to say Whitmore, but what's his last name? Cedarville University. John. No, not John. Whitmore, it is Whitmore. Whitcomb is what I keep wanting to say. Whitmore is who it is. Okay, that's my brain. Okay, so Dr. John Whitmore, these guys have done cutting-edge research, and this July, they published the very first paper on their research. How many of you guys remember back in 2017, they wanted to go do some rocks sample collection at the Grand Canyon, and the park refused to let them go? Do you guys remember that? Remember? They had to sue the national park to get to go there. Oh, man, what a story. Well, we're there going, thankfully they got permission, they got to do their research, they published it this year, the research that they're doing. Well, we're standing right in front of a place where the rock is folded. It's not just folded in one layer, it's folded in all the layers, over 1 mile of dirt above your head. And that entire mile is folded. And the research that they've done was to find out, was it folded while it was soft sediment, or was it folded after it had hardened into rock? Because if it had folded when it was hardened into rock, you would see the cracks in it. And we would know, okay, and according to the evolution worldview, remember that top layer was 230 million years old. The bottom layer down there, that's like 730 million years old. We're talking about 500 million year time from the bottom to the top, according to the evolution worldview. And so if that's 500 million years, man, the bottom layer, that would be solid rock by the time the top layer is forming. So it should definitely have cracks in it, no doubt about it. And what they're discovering is there's no cracks. The sedimentation process, when these layers turned from soft sediment into rock, all happened while the rock was bent. Here's what I shot while I was there.
I feel blessed beyond measure. Check this out. I'm here at Monument Fold. This is where Dr. Schnelling and other geologists, Dr. John, have been doing their research. And the research is coming back to show all of these layers are folded just in the same spot here. And from the tapetes up above it, the Bright Angel, the Muav, they're all folded. And he is demonstrating that fold took place while they were all soft sediment, which means there was no millions of years involved in laying down these rocks. And this is right here. This is a death blow to the evolution worldview and to the old earth worldview. It's incredible. I just feel, it's epic. It's monumental to be at a place like this. Unbelievable.
We are finally doing the research right now, the cutting edge research inside of a Christian worldview that is coming back and showing these rock layers all formed at the same time. Now, we've been saying that for years. We've known that it's true based on biblical authority. But man, the research is coming back, and it is strong and it is heavy. All 1 mile of sediment, all 1 mile was bent while it was all still soft sediment. It was not hardened into layers of rocks. Those layers of rocks would have fractures in them if they were bent after they formed, after the millions of years, and they didn't. They're all bent with no fractures. This is incredible, incredible evidence that God's word really is true. So it was just really cool for me to get to hang out there with these guys and see this place. Show you this. So Dr. Jeremy Lyon, Dr. Andrew Schnelling, Dr. John Whitmore, and Dr. Terry Mortensen. Just an incredible, incredible, incredible opportunity. Hey, I'm going to take a break a little bit early, but I'm going to break right now because I want to jump over to a different presentation. We're going to take about a 10-minute break, and then I want to come back, and I want God to blow your mind out of the water when it comes to who he is. Because I think some of us, especially here in America, we need a slight wake-up call about who this creator is that judged the entire world, why he did it, and what's coming next. So we'll take a 10-minute break. Got some announcements before that, and then we'll come back.
Great. Would 15 minutes work? 15?
We're good. Hey, you guys are pretty good at that 15-minute time limit. This is impressive. Most audiences, they don't have that figured out. That stretches out a whole lot longer. Hey, if you're just now joining, my name is Eric Hovind. I'm from Pensacola, Florida, and I travel around and talk about God's Word and God's world, science and Scripture, and how they come together and how we can truly trust them both. I love that. Now, I don't say we can trust them both and adopt an evolution worldview or an old earth worldview. We got the two basic worldviews. God created the heavens and the earth, or in the beginning, nothing. Remember that? Nothing created everything, and then lightning struck the soup, and what happened? It came alive and found someone to marry, and then it had kids, and its kids had, and its kids had, and its kids had, and it turned into the, oh, do you guys remember this? It turned into the fish, then the amphibians, then the reptiles, and then the mammals. I know you didn't bring notes to write this down, but it spells the word farm, F-A-R-M, fish, amphibians, reptiles, mammals. Now you can try to remember that, even though you're going to forget this by tomorrow while you're playing your video games, okay? So fish, amphibian, reptile, mammals, that's what you got. Compare that to the creation worldview. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, by the way, the evolution worldview teaches an idea, a concept called humanism. Humanism says the end of all being is the happiness of man. The reason we're here is for our own happiness. Christianity says, no. We're not here for our pleasure. We are here for God's glory. We have a reason, a purpose for existing, and it's to glorify our Creator, God. G.K. Chesterton said, when we cease to worship God, we do not worship nothing. We will worship anything. And what do people end up worshiping when they stop worshiping God? Themselves. That's exactly right. Me, myself, and I. They end up worshiping themselves. Scripture actually got it right again. Knowing this verse, there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts, their own selfish, sinful desires. Sir Arthur Keith was one of those scoffers. He actually wrote the foreword to Charles Darwin's book on the 100th anniversary of its reprint in 1959. Sir Arthur Keith said, evolution is unproved and unprovable. We believe it because the only alternative is special creation, and that is unthinkable. Julian Huxley was Thomas Huxley's grandson. Thomas Huxley was known as Charles Darwin's bulldog, who actually pushed evolution through the universities and around Germany. Well, his grandson, Julian Huxley, said this: I suppose the reason we all leapt at the origin of species, or jumped at the origin of species, was because the idea of God interfered with our sexual mores. Our morals were different than God's, and we decided we'll take evolution because it lets us do what we want. Now, the Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That one verse right there is amazing. I did a webinar. I do webinars once a week, and I did one with Bodie Hodge on world religions. And you need to go watch this webinar. It's at our website, creationtoday.org. Just look up world religions in the search box, okay? You need to go listen to this conversation. Bodhi did a great job of classifying all the different religions. You got the religions that say there really is no material world, the Buddhists, the Hindus. You got the religions that say it's only material, it's not spiritual, it's only material. And then you got Christianity that says it's both. Anyway, he does a good job of classifying the different religions. And then he points out how this one verse, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, this one verse destroys every other worldview other than Christianity. It was just amazing how we went, look at this, boom, look at this, boom, look at this, boom. World Religions by Bodhi Hodge. You need to go look that up. Well, I was raised in the church. I was raised like a lot of you guys. Was brought up going to Sunday school, being taught the Word of God. I was brought up hearing a pastor preach Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. I was brought up, my mom was the piano teacher and the piano and the organ player. She could do the whole, like, 2 rows at the same time plus her feet. And I'm like, dude, that's amazing. I always was mesmerized watching her play the organ. I'm like, how is your brain doing that while reading some paper that has black dots on it? This is, wow, it was just phenomenal. So then we had between youth group and visitation, we were in church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night, and then Saturdays. I mean, I grew up in the church. This was home. My problem was I became the product of my environment rather than a real disciple of Jesus Christ. I became a product of the church environment. I knew what to do. I knew how to act. I knew what to say. I knew what to wear. I knew how to behave because this is how I had grown up inside the church. I knew a lot about God because I was quizzed on it. I was tested it. I was in Christian school. My problem was I didn't actually know God. You know what the stats are today for the number of kids that grow up in Christian homes and then reject the faith after leaving Christianity? Somewhere around between 70 and 80% of kids that grow up in a Christian home will reject God after 1 year of college. I mean, think about this. I mean, the chances of your child getting cancer, less than 1%. The chances of your child graduating college, 20%, 21%. The chance of your child walking away from Christianity, 80%. I mean, wow. And I think it's because we're great at giving people our faith instead of saying, hey, you need your own. I tell my kids, man, I can't get you to heaven. I am a sinner saved by the grace of God, and I am nothing but a mess up trying to serve a perfect God. So you just need to recognize, you need to realize I will mess up, and I'll try to say I'm sorry. I'll try to model Christ the best I can. I'll try to be humble. But I've messed up, and I will continue to do so. You need to follow Christ. That needs to be your focus. It can't be my faith. You got to search this stuff out for yourself. You have to know that this is true. Is it possible that between 70-80% of kids that grow up in Christian homes and go off to college reject God because we're sending out of Christian homes 70 to 80% of kids who didn't really know God when they went off to college? Could that be the reality of what we're facing today? We're raising a bunch of kids that know a lot about God. They're being told what to think. But we need to teach them how to think. And they need to, on their own, they need to understand who God is. It can't just be what we are pushing on them. They have to know. Guys, you have to know for yourself. You got to know for yourself. You got to know for yourself. It can't just be mom and dad's faith. You don't get to heaven on their coattails. It's got to be your own faith. It's got to be you. When you stand before God on Judgment Day, mom and dad don't get to stand next to you and hold your hand. Okay, this is God. Here's what you say. It's you, and it's the creator of the universe. It's you and God. So what are you going to say when it's your turn to stand before him? I don't think he's going to buy, if you decide to believe the evolution worldview, I don't think he's going to buy that as an excuse. Matter of fact, he says nobody gets an excuse. Nobody gets an excuse for not believing in him, for not trusting in him. Nobody has an excuse. They are without excuse, is what the Bible says. So why? They believed in evolution. Doesn't matter. They really did believe in a primordial soup. They even write about it. Before there was life on earth, there were molecules, a primordial soup. I told you that's what they called it, didn't I? I even found a picture of it. There it is, right there. Campbell's primordial soup. Hope you're not hungry, man. You got to cook it for 4.5 billion years, okay? They say at some point a few specialized molecules began replicating. This self-replication, scientists agree, kick-started a biochemical process that would lead to life's first organisms. But exactly how that happened, how those molecules began replicating, that's been one of science's enduring mysteries. We know it happened, we're just not sure how. Wait a minute, maybe there's a problem. Maybe what God's word said is true. Maybe God did create the heavens, and then God said, let there be light. And let me tell you something. You did not want to be standing in front of the mouth of God when he said, let there be light, because man, light is booking. Anybody know how fast light is traveling? Come on, this is the Design Science Association. Everybody should know what this is. What's the speed of light? Fast. We got the culturally relevant answer. Fast, really, really fast. What is it? 186,200 miles. I didn't put the 200, I rounded. 186,000 miles a second. Kids. Light can go around planet Earth 7.5 times in 1 second. Now, I like speed. Did anybody get my last email? Did anybody get my last email of me with riding my motorcycle? Did you? How many of you do not get my emails? Oh, so sad. Oh, man. I got on a motorcycle for you guys, and y'all don't even care. Anyway, and I know I didn't have my helmet on. Okay, just don't. I was on my own little road right there. Anyway, I like speed, okay? I bought a Suzuki Gixxer 750, okay? This machine will do 191 miles per hour. And the problem is the speed limit is 70, which I always try to go at least the speed limit. That's my problem. No, but I stay safe, and I like speed. I really enjoy, going fast. And I think about, I don't know if I should share this. Kids, I don't know if I've done 185 miles an hour on a motorcycle. You talk about scary. Yes, I was wearing a helmet, okay? You talk about scary. You're flying, man. You don't want to get your head up because, man, the wind will catch it. It's crazy. I like 185. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, when we flew up here, I looked at the plane. We were doing 550 miles an hour. Oh, yeah. I would love to ride with my Blue Angel guys, the guys that are there in Pensacola. I'd love to go for a ride with the Blue Angels, man, and hit Mach speed over 700 and 800, maybe 1,000 miles an hour. Whoa, that would be awesome. That's nothing compared to light. Light's doing 186,000 miles in a second, not an hour, a second. That's the same as 11,160,000 miles in a minute. That's the same as 669,600,000 miles an hour. My motorcycle, 185. That's my motorcycle. Light, 669,600,000 miles an hour. That's the same as 5.88 trillion miles in a year. Now, you have no idea what the difference is between million, billion, and trillion. Congress knows that. They take advantage of it on us all the time, okay? You do not comprehend that difference, but there is a difference between million, billion, and trillion. I'm going to use $100 bills for my illustration here. We're going to find out how much a trillion really is using $100 bills. If I had a half-inch thick stack of $100 bills, that would be $10,000. If you got 100 of those little packets together, that would be $1 million. That's what $1 million looks like in $100 bills. If that is $1 million and you had $1 billion, what would $1 billion look like in $100 bills? Are you ready? $1 billion in $100 bills. Is there a difference between million and billion? Oh, yeah. If that's a billion, what's a trillion look like? 1,000 times more. That's $1 trillion in $100 bills. Is there a difference between million, billion, and trillion? What are they trying to pass right now? $1.7 trillion? We're going to be out of trees really soon at the rate Congress is spending money, okay? Wow. Hey, when scientists want to measure how far away things are in the universe, they don't use inches. They don't use feet. They don't use miles. They use a light year. The light year, 5.88 trillion miles, that's like their inch out there in space. How many light years is that away? By the way, light year is a distance, it's not a time. It is a distance. People asking, how do we see light from stars that are billions of light years away? That's a distance. That's not measuring an amount of time. It's a distance, how far something is. Don't have time to talk about the rest of that. Anyway, so a light year, that's the inch out there in space. Now, you guys know we are on planet Earth, and we are orbiting a star called the sun. A lot of you guys got that right. And we are 93 million miles away from the sun. And by the way, you are really good. You're really glad, Gilbert, that we're 93 million miles away and not 95 million miles away, okay? And you're really glad we're not 91 million miles away. We just happen to be, scientists call it the Goldilocks zone, the perfect distance from the sun. We just happen to be in that perfect distance where we're not too hot, not too cold. Just like Goldilocks liked the porridge. Not too hot and not too cold. Our planet Earth is one of how many different planets? So I heard some nines out there. How many planets? Oh, we dropped down to 8, huh? Scientists, man, can you believe Neil deGrasse Tyson wanted to kick Pluto out? I think we should all revolt against him and all say 9 from now on, okay? Let's just keep it to 9 planets. We got the Earth and 8 other planets, or 7, depending on what you want to believe. And we're all going around the sun, right? Okay, so we're cruising around the sun. By the way, here's what the planets look like if you put them next to each other. That's their sizes. You got Pluto way down there. You got planet Earth, Neptune. They really need to just rename that one. There's just no good way to say it. Anyway, Saturn and Jupiter, here's the planets. If we zoomed out and we put the sun inside of that picture, this is what the sun would look like compared to the planets. And people think, oh man, the sun is so big. Well, actually, it's not that big. Check this out.
It's nearly 1 million miles in diameter, yet our sun is tiny compared to the really big stars out there. Eta Carinae, over 5 million times larger than our sun. Betelgeuse, 300 times larger than Eta Carinae. If it was our sun, it would reach as far out as Jupiter. And then there's this monster, VY Canis Majoris, the largest star ever discovered, 1 billion times bigger than our sun.
Wow is right. Scientists that study the stars, astronomers, they have a nagging question in the back of their mind. What is all that stuff out there doing? I mean, if all of this space, if all of the universe, if all those galaxies, if they're just here for us, I mean, for you and me and the other 8 billion people on the planet, if it's just for us, seems like there's a lot of wasted space in the universe. David, the guy who lived a couple thousand years ago, the psalmist who wrote the Psalms. David figured out what it was doing. Can I read what he wrote? He said, I got it figured out. The heavens declare the what? They declare the what? The glory of God. He goes on, he says, there is no speech nor language where that voice isn't heard, okay? No matter where you are in the world, the heavens are declaring the glory of God. You're sitting back looking up going, wow, God. Wow, God. Wow, God. A.W. Tozer said, what comes into your mind when you think about God is the most important thing about you. Design Science Association, I got a question for you. What comes into your mind when you think about, ready? God. It's the most important thing about you. And can I share with you what my concern is? It's my concern in the church today. It's my concern with the Western world today, the Eastern world today. My concern is that we have stopped imagining the glory of God. You remember being a kid and asking mom or dad the question about how big God is? Remember, man, about his age right there. And you're like, hey, mom, hey, dad, is God as big as this whole building? And mom or dad goes, guess what, sweetie? Bigger than the whole building. And you're like, no way! Mind blown, man. You're just kind of like, wow, God is amazing. And then you get a little older and you're like, hey, mom, hey, dad. Is God as big as Portland, Oregon? And mom or dad goes, oh, babe, guess what? Bigger than Portland, Oregon. And your little brain just goes, mind blown, man. Wow, God is so big. And then you get a little older and you're like, hey, mom, hey, dad. Is God as big as the United States of America? And they go, guess what? Bigger than the United States of America. And you're like, this is amazing. God is so big. But then, somewhere on your journey, we start focusing a whole lot more on us than we do on God. And we start focusing a whole lot more on our glory and what we can do than on God's glory and who He is. What comes into your mind when you think about God? It's the most important thing about you. So what comes into your mind when you think about God? I love the passages in the Bible where God is kind of showing Himself off. We read in Isaiah, I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to graven images. Remember the former things of old. I am God, there is none else. I am God, and there's none like me. And we look back at the Old Testament, we're like, how did the children of Israel keep forgetting? He's God, for crying out loud. And yet we kind of do the same thing here, don't we? He goes on, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. And that is where the cosmic battle takes place. Because you want God to do everything for your pleasure. And God says, it doesn't work like that. I do everything for my pleasure. Like, really? Did God create everything for His pleasure? That's what He says over and over and over. For by him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things were created by him and who? And what? And for him. Who are they for? Are they for me or are they for him? They're all for him. Don't believe me? Daniel, all the people of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the power of heaven and the people of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, what have you done? But isn't that what we do? Isn't that what happens when you walk out and you're in your everyday life? Aren't you going, God, what are you doing? Why did you? Hey, God, how come? Hey, God, what about? And we find ourselves wanting to question and to call into account the creator of the universe. I just want you to take a time out from your thoughts. Take those thoughts captive. If we made them to obedient to Christ, what would we be thinking? Hey, just to help you understand this, let's take our entire solar system. So we got our solar system, which is the sun, and how many planets? 9. Okay, 9 planets. And our solar system is inside of a galaxy. What's the name of our galaxy? Milky Way galaxy. And our galaxy is one of the galaxies in the whole universe. Okay, so we got solar system, galaxy, universe. Okay, let's take our solar system and let's shrink it down to the size of a quarter. Does anybody have a quarter I could borrow for this? I forgot. I don't have any sense at all, actually. My wife keeps saying. You got one? Can I? You got a 20. Is that a quarter? Is that a quarter? No. Does anybody have a dog? I got a cat. Come on, man. Come on. Anybody got a quarter? Oh, I got, can you bring that up to me? Bring that up to me real quick. Thank you, buddy. Awesome. Okay, so we got our quarter right here, all right? So this is going to be our entire solar system. I mean, the sun is George Washington's earwax right there, okay? The earth is going around the sun, around his ear, kind of under the wig right there. And then the orbit, all the way out here is the orbit of, Jupiter and Neptune. Neptune or Pluto, whichever one you want to choose, is right out there at the edge. They kind of switch places every once in a while. But anyway, so that's the edge. So that's our entire solar system. I'll be careful with you guys. Hello. Wow, that would be crazy. So you're there on Earth and you're going around the sun. If this was our solar system, how big would the galaxy be, the Milky Way galaxy? Now remember, you're not in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. You're like way over on the edge of the Milky Way galaxy. You think the Milky Way galaxy would be represented? I mean, this is our entire solar system, sun and the 9 planets. You think it'd be represented by this entire auditorium? No? Bigger? Bigger. You think it'd be represented by, I mean, we got our little telescope going around planet Earth called the Hubble telescope. It's up there and it's looking out at our, not just our galaxy, but other galaxies out there. You think it'd be represented by all of Portland, Oregon? Bigger. The state of Oregon? Bigger. State of Texas? Ain't nothing bigger than Texas, boy. Bigger. The United States of America. Bigger. If this was our entire solar system, the sun and all the planets, just our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, would be represented by all of North America. Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Yeah. Hey, suppose you wanted to get those little bitty people right there on planet Earth, you wanted to get their attention. You wanted them to look up and go, wow, God, you're awesome. How many stars do you put in your Milky Way galaxy? 1 million? 20 million? 50 million? What's it going to take to get them to look up at your galaxy and go, wow, God, you're amazing? 100 million, 1 billion, 20 billion, 50 billion. Scientists estimate there are 200 plus billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy. If you were to travel at the speed of light, 186,000 miles every second. Every second. 5.88 trillion miles a year. And they say it would take you 100,000 years to get from one side of our galaxy to the other side of our galaxy. And that's just our galaxy. There's other galaxies out there. They actually had the Hubble telescope zoom in on a section of the sky where they thought there were no stars at all. So take a picture of the night sky, zoom in. The size of the sky that they zoomed in on was the size of a grain of sand held at arm's length. That's the section of sky they zoomed in on right there. They left the shutter on the camera open for 11 days. They wanted to see any little bitty pixel they could find in that little bitty dot, any light at all. After 11 days, an 11-day exposure, this is what they saw. Oh, by the way, those aren't stars. Those are galaxies. From one speck in the sky. It's been estimated there are enough stars in our universe that every single person on earth can own 11 trillion of them. You can have 11 trillion of your own stars. Go name them. You're going to be, and you're going to be. You're going to be there a while is what you're going to be, okay? Wow. Hey, you remember the evolution worldview that says everything started about 13.4 billion years ago? Now they changed it to 13.8 just a couple years ago, but about 13 to 20 billion years ago. Suppose it was 13.4 billion years. Suppose the universe started 13.4 billion years ago, and all of these stars formed in the last 13.4 billion years. How fast would you have to make stars in order to get 76 trillion stars, that's the estimate that they give, 70 followed by 21 zeros, 76 trillion stars in our universe to form in 13.4 billion years? You realize, you do the math, you would have to create stars at the rate of 165,000 per second for 13.4 billion years straight to get the number of stars we see in our universe in 13.4 billion years. We should see 165,000 stars forming every single second. And we don't see any. Wow. My family, I mentioned, we live in Pensacola, Florida. Anybody ever been to the Gulf Coast of Florida? The beautiful white sand beaches? Oh, man. Is it beautiful? Or it's I mean, I know you got your trees and your mountains and stuff. Oh, my goodness. The beaches of Florida are so beautiful. I mean, it's like you're walking on sugar. Angie, we love our beaches, don't we? We love our beaches. Well, scientists actually did an experiment. They calculated how many grains of sand are on Pensacola Beach. 1, 2, 3. It was a government project. 4, 5, 6. They added that number to the number of grains of sand on the next beach over, Navarre, Florida. Kept on going all the way around the coast of Florida, went around the coast of the United States, and then around the coast of all the countries in the world, calculating the number of grains of sand on all the beaches of planet Earth. They added that number to the number of grains of sand in all the deserts of the world, Gobi Desert, Sahara Desert, and calculated the number of grains of sand on planet Earth. Guess how many? All of them, yeah, a lot. A lot is right. 7.5 quintillion grains of sand on planet Earth is the number they came up with. Oh no. Oh no. Snap. Do you know what this means? there's more stars in the sky than pieces of sand on our planet. That means every time you go to the beach and you get a piece of sand stuck back there and you just can't get it out, it's disturbing you. That one little grain of sand represents 9,333 stars in the sky. They took a picture. I think it was a year and a half or 2 years ago, maybe now. Might have been before that, but the largest photograph ever taken. Have you guys seen this? The largest photograph ever taken. You know, we got our phones, I don't have my phone with me, but we got our phones and we're like, how many megapixels in the newer phones are all the way up to almost like 50 megapixels. Wow. They took a 1.5 gigapixel image. 1.5 gigapixel image of our closest galaxy, the Andromeda Galaxy. I want you to sit back for the next couple minutes and experience this 1.5 gigapixel photograph that was taken recently. Check this out. Ooh, check this out. So what comes into your mind when you think about God? It's the most important thing about you. Not how much money you make. Not what kind of car you drive. Not where you live. Not how old you are, how young you are, how smart you are. What comes into your mind when you think about God? The Bible says God, He meted, that's where we get the word meter, to measure. He meted the heavens with His span. Distance from the tip of your thumb to the tip of your pinky. That's how God meted or measured the heavens. Then He says, He calls the stars by their names. Sorry, you don't get to name the stars. He's already got names for them. Man. David the psalmist said, O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth, who has set thy glory above the heavens. When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained. What is man that thou art mindful of him? Who are we compared to God? Wow. See, God originally made this world perfect. It was beautiful in every regard. And then something happened. God gave man the choice, and man said, hey, instead of worshiping and serving you, trusting you, I'm going to trust myself. And something came into God's perfect creation. What was that? Sin. And the Bible says something followed sin. It says, wherefore as by one man sin entered into the world, and death through or by sin. Death came into God's perfect creation. The reason we have death in this world is because of man's sin. We messed up. How would you respond? You created the heavens and the earth. You put man on there, and then man messes up. Destroys it all. How would you respond? You know how God responded to man's sin is pretty incredible. It's not what you would have done. It's not what I would have done. So different. Sometimes I just wonder, when you pray, dear Heavenly Father, do you have any idea what just came out of your mouth? (1977). So many of you will remember this. 1977, year before I was born, they launched the Voyager spacecraft. Remember that? Its job was to go out to deep space. They were trying to get to the edge of the quarter. So go out there to deep space and take images of the planets as we go by and things like that. I threw together a little video of the Voyager's journey through space and its conclusion. Check this out.
On September 5th, 1977, NASA's Voyager 1 launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida, aboard a Titan Centaur rocket. Initially designed to last 5 years, today, more than 4 decades after launch, Voyager 1 is still sending back data as it explores interstellar space. 1.5 years after launch, Voyager 1 had reached Jupiter. For the first time, we were seeing close-up images of this giant in our solar system. Voyager's next event was an encounter with Saturn. Visible from the Earth with the naked eye, our appreciation grew with what seemed to be personal portraits of Saturn with her rings and her moons. Continuing away from the Earth at 40,000 miles an hour, Voyager continued to stay in contact with planet Earth. In 1990, NASA gave Voyager what they thought would be its last command. Focus your camera back toward home and send us a picture of what you see. What it captured was remarkable. There, as a faint speck, was our home.
It's regarded as the most impactful picture ever taken in history. The Voyager. The image is now known as the pale blue dot. It inspired somebody named Carl Sagan, who was once the world's most famous atheist. He is now a believer. That's because he died. Bad way to become a believer. It inspired him to write something, and I want to read just a portion of his quote. I encourage you to go look up the entire quote. Let me just read a portion of his quote, and let me allow an atheist to give you a challenge today. He said about the pale blue dot, Carl Sagan, he said, if you look at it, you see a dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you've ever heard of, they lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. He said, think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that in glory and in triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of the dot on sacredly distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner of the dot. He concluded, in all this vastness, there's no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. Carl Sagan's thoughts on the pale blue dot. Can I share something with you guys? The God who created you decided not to wipe out the pale blue dot. He didn't do what you or I would have done. The Bible actually records for us God's reaction to man's sin. It's found in Philippians chapter 2. Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Instead, he made himself of no reputation and took upon himself the form of a servant. He was actually made in the likeness of men. He became one of the traitors. He became one of the ones that messed it up. And then, being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself. And he became obedient unto death, and not just any death, the worst that had ever been invented in time, the death of the cross. No hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. That's not what God says. He says, I came. I lived and I died as one of you. Why? Careful. Careful. Don't let your humanism creep in. He did all that for me. It's all about me, Jesus, and all this is for me. No. Why did he become a man and die the death of the cross? He tells us why. Wherefore, because of this, God has highly exalted him, Jesus, and given him a name which is above every name, that at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth, and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. So that God will get glory. To the glory of God. To the glory of God. Design Science Association, have we figured out why God made us? Why do you exist on planet Earth? It's for one reason. It's to glorify God. It's to glorify God. Later, Carl Sagan said, "How is it that hardly any major religion has looked at science and concluded, this is better than we thought? The universe is much bigger than our prophet said, grander, more subtle, more elegant. God must have been even greater than we dreamed." Instead, they say, no. My God is a little God, and I want him to stay that way. What comes into your mind when you think about God? I'm afraid for many of us, it's a very small view of God. We've got our life, and we got those little God things that we do, we got the... If you're here and you have done the very first thing necessary to give God glory, which is to repent of sin and trust in Christ as your Savior, then now you're not your own. You are bought with a price. Therefore, you should glorify God with your body. We know that all have sinned and we fall short of the glory of God. If you're here and you're part of that 80% that you don't really know, you've never really repented and trusted in Christ, can I tell you something? You need to do that. You really do need to do that. You need to repent and you need to put your trust in Jesus Christ. How do I do that? Well, the way you trust in Christ is the same way I would trust in a parachute if I were to get in an airplane and go up and jump out of the airplane. I'd put on a parachute, I'd strap it on, and I'd trust in that parachute. That's what's going to save me from absolute death at a fall from an airplane. The Bible says, put on the Lord Jesus Christ. Have you ever really trusted in Christ? Not just said something because your mom or dad or your pastor or your Sunday school teacher said to say it. Have you ever really trusted in Christ? Ivan McGuire was pioneering taking video footage of people jumping out of airplanes. He was a major parachuter, skydiver, when Sony had invented the actually didn't invent, but adopted in its line the lithium-ion battery, and the Sony Handycams became a thing, the small Handycams. And we remember when that happened. Many of us remember, man, you can get a camera that's this small. Are you kidding? How does that work? Where minds are blown, how the battery works. Well, he was super fascinated with his new Handycam, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to capture video footage of people jumping out of airplanes, and that way they can have it, they can show other people. And I mean, the guy, he had already over 900 jumps. I mean, the guy was a great skydiver. So he goes up with a couple. He's got his new Sony Handycam, man. He's going to videotape a tandem jump where somebody is jumping for either the first, second, or third time. So they're jumping with somebody else who has experience, who can help control them, make sure they pull the ripcord at the right time. And he videotaped this entire experience, and it's incredible. Keep in mind, it's not as good as our HD footage that we have today, but he captures this jump on camera. He gets to the edge of the plane, and man, he's so excited about his new camera. And so he and another guy jump out, and then the tandem couple jump, and man, they're free falling. And it's just this rush of adrenaline, and the dopamine's hitting the brain. And he videotapes them, and then he sees them pull their ripcord, and he maneuvers and he turns over because he's going to pull his ripcord, and it's right here to the right side of you when you're skydiving. So he reaches back to pull his ripcord, and he can't find the ripcord. It's like, oh man, maybe for some reason, maybe it's on the other side. He reaches to the left side, it's not there, and all of a sudden it dawned on him in his excitement to videotape the jump. He had forgotten to put on his parachute. And that day, Ivan fell to his death. Guys, this is the Design Science Association. We can really get excited about God's world, and that's awesome. Please don't forget what's most important. If you're here and you've never put on the Lord Jesus Christ, there's nothing more important than that. I don't care if you were brought up in church like I was. I didn't get saved till I was in my 20s. I was a product of the church environment rather than a disciple of Jesus Christ. When I really got saved, old things were passed away. All things were become new. I was a new creature in Christ Jesus. Please don't be so focused on the little things of creation or on the latest technology and the latest gadget that you forget to put on your parachute. Trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, and you'll be saved. I don't know how you guys normally do this, but I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask, I'm not going to embarrass anybody, but in just a second, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and bow your head in just a second. And then I'm going to ask a couple questions. I'm going to say, number one, is there anybody here that would say, Eric, I don't think I've really put on the Lord Jesus Christ. I need to do that. You don't have to stand. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. I'm going to look around. I'm going to see you, not so I can call you out, but I just want to pray for you. Then I'm going to say, put your hands down. Then I'm going to say, hey, who here has had a really small view of God, and your view of God needs to expand quite a bit so that you are living every moment for His glory? You're in that job for His glory. You meet these people for His glory. You drive your car for His glory. You clean your house for His glory. You need to recognize that everything is for God's glory, and you need to start living that way. And I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. Then we're going to bow our heads. I'm just going to pray. I'm going to pray over you. Then we're going to share a few more things, that we're going to have a Q&A after that. But if it's all right at this time, would you guys bow your head and close your eyes? Is there anybody here that would say, Eric, wow, either I've been brought up in a church home, but it's not my own faith, or, man, I just got to admit, I've never bowed the knee to that God, repented of my sin, seen it the way He sees it, changed my mind about sin, and said, God, I want to trust in your work, in what you did, not what I can do. I want to trust in the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ for my salvation. I want to put on the Lord Jesus Christ. I've never done that, and I know I should. On the count of three, just raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Anybody out there like that? Never really done that. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Never really done that. Never really repented and trusted in Christ. Thank you. Anybody else? I don't want to embarrass you. Thank you. Anybody else? Awesome. You can put your hands down. Hey, would anybody say this, Eric? My mind needs to start reimagining the greatness of God. And I need to make sure and reprioritize and refocus, and my life needs to be about God's glory and not my own. Anybody out there God challenging you with that? Just lift up your hand. 1, 2, 3. Anybody? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Heavenly Father, as you, I pray, have worked in our hearts and our minds and made us realize who you are, God, number one, I pray for the individuals out here who say, man, I've never truly repented and trusted in you, God, the way you want me to, on your terms, so to speak. God, I know that I can't open eyes, and I know that nobody here can open eyes, and I know that the leadership of this church can't open their eyes, but you, God, can open their eyes to spiritual things. Would you open their eyes to you? And would they experience spiritual birth? God, would they repent and trust in you? You tell us to do that just by talking to you, just by praying, just by calling out. Whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. So, God, if they're here and they're not saved, would they call on your name today? And we trust your Holy Spirit to do the work that only your Holy Spirit can do. God, for those of us that need to, we need to stretch our minds again like we were kids, just a little bit bigger and go, wow, God, you're amazing. And you did all this not for me, but for you. We want to cast off the humanistic gospel. And we want to focus our minds on you and who you are. God, I pray for these individuals that are here. God, thank you. Thank you that they would come and take time on a Saturday to come and learn and equip themselves. God, I pray that this challenge would be directly from you and not from me. And Holy Spirit, I pray that whether they eat or they take a drink, that they would do that for your glory. For yours and yours alone. Heavenly Father, would the ripple effect of today be felt in eternity? God, would the ripple effect of the leadership of the Design Science Association who just say, we want to commit to gathering together, sharing the truth about God's world, and asking God to use that to influence people, God, would that continue to ripple into eternity? Thank you for creating us. And thank you for loving us enough to come to the pale blue dot and give up your life so that we may have eternal life. You are to be praised above all. We give you the honor and we give you the glory for everything you choose to do. In your precious and holy, holy, oh so holy name, the name above all names, the name of Jesus Christ. We pray these things. Amen. Amen. I do ask a very serious question. What are you doing for the glory of God? What are you doing that's going to matter in eternity? What on earth are you doing for heaven's sake? What are we doing that's going to make a difference when our time on this life is over? I know I'm now 43 years old, but I feel like my time is still just beginning. I was in a bunch of schools this last week. We produce some resources. You guys have enough resources that if anybody here just read 1 or 2 of these books, you'd be smarter than the average person on the street to answer some amazing questions and to go have conversations with people. You really would. Our ministry produces resources. We did the TV show. Mary Ann did that with me for several seasons. The Creation Today show. Loved it. Absolutely awesome. We travel. I talk to atheists. I was talking to... you debated Bernie. What was your name again? Yeah, what was it? You debated Bernie here. Yeah, what was your name? Dennis. I was talking to Dennis, and he enjoys doing this as well, having conversations with atheists and man, just trying to meet people where they're at. I've enjoyed several debates. I love traveling and speaking. I've gotten the privilege of going on TV and defending the faith and just trying to share the truth about who God is. We produced a movie called Genesis, Paradise Lost. I hope you guys have seen an ad for this on Facebook because we're trying to get everybody in the world to see this ad, and we're getting there. But we produced a 3D film called Genesis Paradise Lost. Went to 1,200 theaters around America. It's been out for a couple years now. It's won several awards. I'm just blown away by what
There's
this
been an
film
incredible
has done. Check
calm
this out.
that's occurred in the culture.
Evolution in millions of years is the greatest myth ever forced on the minds of men.
Big Bang, evolution. People just believe it blindly.
How can you not believe that somebody designed all of this?
We know he exists because of creation. Anyone who denies that is a fool.
It's not just faith. We have science. It's really on our side.
So we produced this movie that is just incredible. I just got done earlier this year, I just released the small group curriculum that goes with the movie. It's called Lost. And we have 7 sessions that we go through. We want people in the church to understand, because honestly, most people in the church do not get this. We lost history first when we started doubting Genesis. Once we lost history, we lost trust in the Bible. Once we lost trust in the Bible, we lost truth itself. Now, truth cannot exist. Once you lose history, trust, and truth, now you've lost identity, you've lost purpose, and you've lost paradise. The good news is it can be found. How do you rediscover the truth of God and who He is? So we go through those 7 sessions talking about that. Great small group curriculum, a book that comes with that. Man, I just want you to live your life for the glory of God. I used to do this. I used to ship a bunch of books on location. I stopped doing that. And a couple years ago, I started traveling with these little thumb drives, and these are fantastic. I was able to pack over $500 worth of our resources on one little bitty thumb drive. I mean, it's just kind of amazing. Some of you in here don't know how these work. You take the cap off and you give it to your grandchildren, and you say, "Help." And it works. It's really neat. But I've been able to throw a bunch of books on here. Our charts and our graphs, the longevity chart, the creation evolution timeline, Bonson's books on homosexuality, the evolution cruncher, the great debate, the Bonson-Stein debate, and amazing debate, all on here. And then I threw on here all my, a bunch of videos, over 24 hours of videos, my science experiments like this, and related to scripture. I got 24 of those on here, actually 30 of those on here. My debates with atheists are on here. Several of the Creation Today Show episodes are on here. Small group series that I've done are on here in 6 days. In the beginning series, The Mind of the Skeptic, probably one of my favorite talks. That's right here. This talk is on there. God's Glory, the conversation we were having just now, all about God's glory, that's on this flash drive. So it's all in video form, and then it's also in audio form. So if you want the audio, you can listen to the audio of it as well. And then I went ahead and threw all my PowerPoints, all the slides that you guys were looking at. I threw those on here as well, so that you could actually go through the slides if you wanted and have them all on there. And this is it's just a lot of information. The easiest way for us to disseminate it. And what I do, we're a ministry that we get people are all at different places. We normally carry this for $99, and it really helps support our ministry, but we recognize not everybody is financially able to do that, and some of you, honestly, you just don't think it's worth that. So I get that. I totally get that. We know how much is on here. We know what it's worth, but what we do on location is we say, hey, we want every family to go home with one of these. Okay, every family, we want you to have access to this information. Some of you can afford it, and if you can, that's great. If you can't, we do this. Angie will be at the back table, and if you say, hey, can I have one of those flash drives? She'll say, yeah. How much would you like to pay? And you pay whatever you want. And if you want it for free, you can have it for free. Now, I'm not going to pay you to take it, but you can have it for free. If you say, hey, I really can't afford that right now, can I have one of these? Man, Angie will say, absolutely. It's actually our privilege to partner with you and help educate you on the truth. That's really what we want to do. So we want every family group to get one of these. I think we have enough for every family group to get one of these. So that'd be a big deal for us. So we'd love that. The movie, Genesis Paradise Lost, that movie is $20. Unfortunately, this is not something I can discount, but it's discounted, but I can't give this one away, unfortunately. But it's $20. You get 4 copies of the movie in here in one Blu-ray package. You get 4 copies. You get a 3D Blu-ray, a Blu-ray, and then 2 copies on DVD, because we've translated this in so many languages, we couldn't fit the languages on one DVD, so we had to put it on 2 different DVDs, and we wanted that anywhere these go in the world to have the languages on there. So you can have that for $20. The Lost Small Group Series, That comes with a discussion guide. That one you can pay whatever you want for, okay? So normally it's $50, and we say pay whatever you want for the small group series. We'd love for you to take a group of people through this to really understand why we are so lost. So you do whatever you want there. And then kind of the latest thing that I'm doing, Angie has just a sheet of paper back there, and it's encouraging people to become creation partners. So just partner with us. I am finding myself going, I want to partner with as many people as possible because we have a lot of people to reach. Most of our focus is online. Let me tell you this, just from our website. I pulled a report 2 days ago on our Vimeo account, and that's the account where we post all of our videos, and then from there we embed those videos on the website. So creationtoday.org's websites, all the videos come through Vimeo. Well, I did a little report. I was looking at a report saying, how much content have people watched this year on our website, on creationtoday.org? Now, it calculates it in minutes for me there. It shows me how many minutes of content people have watched. How much would it be worth for a minute of your time? What's a minute of your time worth? How about an hour? Full hour of your time. A day of your time. What's a day worth to you? Would you be surprised if I told you that people had watched over 1 million minutes of video content at creationtoday.org? Oh, it's more than that. More than 10 million? More than 20 million? Guys, people had watched it since January until 2 days ago. 62,200,636 minutes of creation content at creationtoday.org. You do, I'm blown away. Yeah, praise God, praise God. That, I did the math, that's 119 years worth of video watching. You're like, that's impossible. I know, I'm like blown away. Creation Today is reaching out, and I'm sitting back kind of amazed at what God is doing with our little bitty organization. But we have amazing conversations every week. Would love for you to join us. That's what the membership is all about. You get access to all of our conversations that we've had. God has just blessed us with some amazing people to come on and have great conversations with. So if you want to do that, she's got a piece of paper back there. You'll just fill that out, and I'd love for you to partner with this. We're trying to get 80 more partners by the end of the year, and you partner whatever you want. I mean, whatever you want to partner with us. It's a financial thing. It supports the ministry. You partner with whatever amount you want, and you can just, you make that up. We don't have a minimum or maximum or anything like that. So we're just trying to get people to partner with us. Hey, same with Design Science Association. If you don't currently support the work, maybe you're new, maybe you don't know much about their organization, they actually brought us up here and they help us. So I would encourage you, hey, if you're not involved with Design Science, would you talk to some of the people at the table and say, hey, how can I get involved with this? How can I invite more groups here? How can I invite more people here? How can I support what you guys do? I'm telling you, the need is big. We're watching a lot of kids walk away from the truth, and you guys need the truth, and this is a great opportunity, a great way to do it. So love what you guys are doing here, and I'm honored that you would invite Angie and I to be a part of today's conversation with you. I hope you'll leave here today with your mind blown at who God is, and I hope today is a defining moment in your life. Hope you'll never see life, never see God the same way again. God, thank you for loving us. Thank you for caring for us. God, would we take these books on this back table, we take these resources, and would we take them to people and watch you change their life with it? Use us for your glory, I pray. In your precious and holy, holy, holy name, the name above all names, we pray these things, the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Great. Thank you, Eric, for directing our directing our hearts to God. And if we have some questions, we'll have 2 roaming microphones. And please check the table in the back over here with Eric's material afterwards. And again, there will be lunch following. You've got to stick around for the announcements to find out where. How's that? Plus, we do have some good and interesting announcements afterwards. So any questions for Eric?
Man, that's a good presenter when there's no questions, isn't it? Okay, got one right back there.
Here's one here.
Hi, Eric.
Hey.
There are many people who say they know Jesus, they know Bible, they very well actually know Bible, but they say they don't trust so-called science, and they say the Earth is flat. Do you have on your resources on your website or maybe on that flash drive anything like detailed manual how you not contradict, how you disprove what they're saying, because they say, hey, this is the Bible and it says about flat Earth. So I will not go further. You understand probably what I mean. How you convince them in what we can trust the real science that say that the Earth is actually like a ball.
I would not accuse somebody of believing in flat Earth of being stupid or dumb or anything like that. I get it. There are people that really genuinely believe this, and there's some really smart people that believe this, so I'm not questioning that. I do believe they are incorrect, and I don't think it goes with the Bible, and I don't think it goes with science at all. Actually, I know it does not go with science, and I know it doesn't go with the Bible. And you're like, but you didn't see the video I watched on YouTube. And I'm like, I know. I probably have, actually, okay? Done a lot of research into this and know the ideas that they present do not hold water. I did 2 shows. They're on my website for free. You can watch them. Flat Earth versus Science and Flat Earth versus the Bible with Dr. Danny Faulkner. We actually go into a lot of the claims. Okay, they claim this verse. They claim this verse. They claim this verse. And we actually look at each verse and go, okay, what does this really say? Is this saying anything about geography? Is this saying anything about the shape of the earth? Well, it says, it doesn't say sphere, it says circle. And so we actually go into all of that. Neither from the Bible nor from science will you get the idea that the earth is flat. You will get a spherical, round, globe-shaped earth, ball-shaped earth. So I think it's an interesting thing. I don't have like a presentation I could pull up right now on it and actually go through a couple of the pieces. But for example, according to flat earth theory, the sun is somewhere around 3,000 miles above us would be the general idea if you're curious. Well, based on the size of even a flat earth, the sun 3,000 miles up, all the way on the other side, when it, quote, rises, when we start seeing it, they're saying it's just coming over here. Now, that doesn't make sense to me. If the earth is flat, does the sun have a skirt to make it like a flashlight only on a certain area of the world? Because you would have light everywhere if it was 3,000 miles up, okay? You would always see the sun. But another problem is when an object is far away from you, it looks small. When it gets closer to you, it looks big. So if I ask you, how big is this to your eyes at this distance? And you hold your fingers up, it's about that big. If I bring it half the distance, all of a sudden now it's much, much bigger. Well, if the sun is really only 3,000 miles up and it's going around the earth, when it's kind of coming up in the morning compared to what it is when it's right over your head, mathematically, according to flat earth, it should be 10 times larger because of how much closer it is to you. It's not. It's the exact same size. You can look at it through telescopes, and you have lenses in front of the telescopes so that you're actually only seeing the actual sun and not the glare of the sun. You don't look at it with just your eyes. Oh, I'm going to prove them wrong. Look at it with the right filters and stuff. It's the same size. That would make sense if it's 93 million miles away. It doesn't make sense if it's 3,000 miles up. So both Bible and science do not agree with flat earth, and you could just look for those titles on our website and watch Dr. Faulkner and I talk about that. But great question. Another question?
Another one right here.
Oh, don't try to trip me up, John. Come on.
Oh, man, I got to stand. Hey, to me, what you've just described in the galaxies and the universe is a visible, tangible example of eternity. Eternity is a hard concept to understand, but we're looking at it. There's no end. It just keeps going and going and going. It's something that we can see. So that's always been a very fascinating concept to me. But let's reverse the journey. Let's go into a cell. Let's go into an atom and the nucleus. And you get as wild and crazy going that direction as you do going out. And so now if you combine the two, well, man, that's eternity. So,
have any of you guys seen that movie or the video, The Power of 10? How many of you guys have seen the video, Power of 10? If you've never looked it up, that video does that. It goes out in magnitudes of 10 times farther away from the earth, 10 times farther than that, 10 times farther than that, and it goes way out all the way to the universe, and then it does the backwards. It goes, okay, now let's go back to humanity. Zooms in, I think, on a park, and it goes in by the power of 10, then in by the power of 10, in by the power of 10, and it just keeps going, and your mind is sitting there going, wow. And it seems like humanity is somewhere right in the middle from the smallest to the largest. It's just fascinating. But The Power of 10 is a great video on that.
Oh, just one other concept. This, Sagan, in a sense, made an observation that most people would agree with. There is no God, there is no help. We are a speck of dust. But the reality is, size doesn't matter. We've got all of this to show God, but it doesn't matter. He's right here inside of us. He's available. If I think in terms of that size, I begin feeling pretty small. But I don't have to think in terms of size. I just have to think in how God can be with me. And then the responsibilities I have for the day is what He wants to see from me. He wants to see obedience and humility and help the widow and the orphan.
Yeah, love God and love others sums up the whole of the law. Love God and love other people. And you've hit the nail on the head there. Sometimes after I give this talk, I feel like, man, I know it wasn't all just lovey-dovey, and I honestly, I think we got a whole lot of the lovey-dovey in church. And sometimes we need some of the, do you realize who this is, Yes, He is the lovey-dovey, but you need to recognize who He is before you go, and now let's look at His love. His love becomes so much more beautiful when you see it that way. Great thoughts. Any other thoughts or questions?
I have a question over here. Do you believe that before God judges the world, there will be a cascade of discoveries, that they will be totally, even more so, without any excuse that He exists before He judges the world?
Could it be that science just keeps on going? Oh my goodness, that points to God's word is true. Oh my goodness, that points to God's word is true. I don't know what God is going to allow us to discover. I would say just discovering the Dead Sea Scrolls, just the discoveries that they're doing right now in Grand Canyon, the discoveries that I believe they have. We did a video on it. I believe we know right where the real Mount Sinai is. There's actually an altar to a golden calf. I mean, everything. There is so much great information that we've already discovered. We're already without excuse. Now, maybe God's going to go, you know what? I'm going to make it even more obvious and more obvious and more obvious. That's pretty neat, and I certainly am encouraged. The archaeological discoveries that they keep finding over in Israel and in Egypt. And if you guys did you guys see Exodus Patterns of Evidence? Did anybody watch that? Yeah. Oh my goodness, the tomb over there in Egypt that has 11 graves around it, and the one tomb had the coat of many colors painted inside, but that tomb is empty, and the Bible says, Joseph was going to be buried, he's there with his brothers, and they said, take his bones back. I mean, it's just like archaeologically we're discovering so much more. So maybe God's going to give people more, but I'd say even with what we've already got, they have no excuse. I'm excited about what God's going to let us continue to discover, though. And I think we have scratched the surface. I think there's so much more that needs to be discovered. So we need young men to get busy, be smart, work hard, and figure this stuff out. All right? Got it? All right, good. I'm going to check up on that, okay? Any other thoughts right here? Oh, you got one? Yeah, good. Oh, okay, go ahead.
When you showed the figures of the stars and the sands and stuff, the scripture, Genesis 22:17 comes to mind. I will multiply your descendants by the stars in the sky and the sands in the shore.
Yeah.
How can you acquaint that? That's a huge number. And his descendants, I mean, is that through time? Is it?
Great question. How long are we going to be here? How many descendants are there really going to be? When is God coming back? I mean, we look around at the world right now and we're like, okay, it's going to be soon. The world has been in a lot rougher situations than we are right now. Even, I don't know if you saw, Austria is doing even more lockdown. I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable what's going on, but it's still nothing compared to what it used to be like. So I don't know. I built a website. I think I had the card here somewhere. Yeah. I built this website called searchcreation.org. And I built this because I went, you know what? I know I don't have every answer, but I've got friends with websites that are amazing. And so I built a search engine. It's basically a Google backend to do searching, but it only searches the top 43 apologetic websites in the world. So it's Google without the junk. And I got this card on the back table. You can grab it to help you remember what it is. It's just searchcreation.org. If you do any search like, hey, that reference, that passage in Genesis chapter 2, or that wasn't 2, that was Genesis. Yeah, 22. Okay. Or you do, multiply your seed more than stars, more than sand. You do a search on that search engine. I guarantee you, if it has to do with science or the Bible, you will have an amazing results, because it indexes answers in Genesis, ICR, CMI, Always Be Ready, GotQuestions.org. It's 43 of my top apologetic websites in the world. And so somebody has a great article on that very thought. And it's probably going to be for my friends at GotQuestions.org. They've got over 275,000 answers to Bible questions. It's unbelievable. But anyway, so we just research them all, let people, search them all at one time and not get the junk. So I think I'd recommend that. I'd recommend going right there. Yeah.
You said geological column is the Grand Canyon. So I don't know if you were talking about evolutionist view or not, but my previous knowledge was that it didn't match up with the Grand Canyon.
Right, so my apologies. I didn't make that very clear, but the geologic column is all the layers to the earth. Those are added up from all over the place, and there are places where there are missing layers. So they've taken any layer that they find elsewhere, put it in. The geologic column is really kind of the whole list, if you will, of all the different layers. You won't find the entire geologic column at the Grand Canyon. So if I communicated that was my fault. I'm sorry.
So do evolutionists believe that it actually matches? Is that why they layered it up like that?
Well, it's tough. So there are places around the world where the layers are in opposite order of what the geologic column is. Are there any? As the Grand Canyon doesn't have any. What do they call it when it's an inverted layer, Mr. Swanson? What do they call that? Overthrust. Yeah. Okay. So there are places that don't match, where it's like, hey, the geologic column says this layer first, then this layer, and it's like, well, wait a minute, these are the opposite of that. I don't think there's overthrust at the Grand Canyon, though, is there? I didn't think so, no. So the Grand Canyon does match the order, even if some layers are missing in places where they find, on another continent, they find the Supai group, then they find another layer, then they find this, the red wall. That group, they would insert that into the geologic column to say, hey, geologic column is a representation of all over the earth. Grand Canyon doesn't have every single layer, but there's no... I was thinking it was a different word than overthrust, but oh well, you are smarter. Overthrust, there's no overthrust where the layers are upside down, if that makes sense. Huh? It's that concept, though, where they're inverted layers, but overthrust, I'm going with overthrust.
Well, one thing I always say is that many people believe that you have to understand the geologic column as being a mental abstraction, because it's taking all these different locations throughout the entire world and putting it in one.
Yeah.
So you won't find a single location in the earth where they all exist.
And if they were all in one layer, in one place, from my understanding, it would be over 100 miles thick. By the time you put them all together and add them all up, it would be it'd be over 100 miles.
Eric, I have a question over here.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So from the perspective of an atheistic evolutionary worldview, what is the strongest argument that you know of for a moral law that we should abide by, and how would you answer it?
According to the atheist evolution worldview, how do we get a moral law? It does not exist. Here's why in an atheist worldview. Can they be moral? Yes, but only based on Christian morality, not based on their own morality. Because they can't get a moral law. Think about it. A moral law is universal. That means it applies everywhere. It's unchanging. It's not okay in the future, or it was okay in the past. A moral law is unchanging. It's universal, it's unchanging, and it's not made out of matter. You can't go buy the law at the hardware store and give me 3 pounds of it. Okay? This law, this moral law, any moral law is universal, immaterial, and unchanging. The only way to get a universal, immaterial, unchanging law is if you start with something that is universal, immaterial, and unchanging. God. The God of the Bible is the only way to get a universal, immaterial, unchanging law of morality. Only way to get a universal, immaterial, unchanging law of science. Only way to get a universal, immaterial, unchanging law of logic. Only way to get a universal, immaterial, unchanging law of mathematics. If you don't start with God, you don't get logic, science, math, or morality. You have to start with the God of the Bible. And that is a great argument, I guess you could use. That's a great way to have a conversation with an atheist. Because all of their morality will be subjective or relative. And as soon as they do that, I was at the universities this last week, and I knew they would do that. As soon as they started arguing a relativistic morality, I said, oh, so you're okay with what Adolf Hitler did? Because that's where it leads. There's no right and there is no wrong. Great observation.
So we probably have time for perhaps 2 more questions. JD, are there any on your side?
All right. So Eric, why do you think Christian churches and apologetic ministries are so willing to compromise with long ages, even though many of them fight against evolutionary thinking? And practically speaking, how do you deal with people who have that viewpoint, who want to work in long ages?
Yeah. I just did a show with gotquestions.org. They just released it on their YouTube channel 2 days ago. And it was on that very thing, about young earth creation versus old earth. And he asked me some questions that I was like, man, I don't know if I'm comfortable saying this publicly, but I'll go ahead and say it. It's like, look, I disagree vehemently with an old earth position. And I have reasons for disagreeing with old earth position. It doesn't match science, and it doesn't match scripture. Science, you can prove over and over and over, the earth is mature, but it's not old. And there's many ways to show that. Scripture, over and over and over, what are you going to come away with? God is going to make a new heaven and a new earth, just like the old one. But according to the old earth worldview, the old earth is filled with death and suffering. So the new one's going to be filled with death and suffering as well? It's not consistent with what the scripture tells us about the new heaven and the new earth. Frank Turek was asked a question recently. I think Frank does a great job of answering lots of people's questions on lots of different topics. But he was asked a question, guy standing right about where you're at, he was actually in the aisleway, said, it seems like before Adam and Eve, there was lots of predation, lots of death, lots of killing, lots of suffering. How do you reconcile that? And Frank gets up and he says, and I got the video on my laptop, he says, if the old earth worldview is true, then yes, there was lots of death and suffering before Adam and Eve. And then he gives, in my opinion, a very weak argument, But God made a garden in Eden, and it implies that outside it wasn't good, but inside he made a good place. And I'm like, where do you get that from Scripture? Where do you get the idea that the world was bad, but he made one good place in the garden and everything outside? That's not what you get from the Bible. That's not from Scripture. That's pushed on, that's interpreted into the text. It's not taken from the text. So I feel like I answered it okay on that interview with gotquestions.org, but I'm like, look, I love anybody who wants to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'll also be honest and be pretty bold in saying, if you are presenting an old earth view, you're compromising the doctrine that gives you salvation. Why do we need to be saved? What do we need to be saved from? So the way I say it on Twitter is like this: the age of the earth is not essential to salvation. It's not. You can be saved and believe whatever you want about the age of the earth, okay? Because salvation is based on the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus Christ. Have you trusted in that for salvation? However, it is essential to the doctrine that gives us salvation. Did God create a world with lots of death and suffering? Well, then, what did Adam's sin affect? Is the whole creation really cursed because of sin, which is what the Bible says, because of Adam's sin? Well, then, why did Christ die the death of the cross, if that's the way he invented it to begin with? So, I'll share a stage with them. I have conversations with them. I had Sean McDowell on my program a couple weeks ago. He is an old earth. He doesn't focus on it, so he doesn't want to be known as that. But he would think in his mind right now, the earth might be old. I asked him one time, I said, how old earth are you? He said, well, let me put it this way. I'm not as old earth as you are young earth. And I went, okay, because I'm pretty hardcore, biblical creation, young earth. So, but I didn't have him on to talk about any of that. He's done amazing research into how Generation Z thinks and how we can reach Generation Z. So I had him on to talk about that. How do we reach this next generation? You guys are hard to reach. How are we going to get to you, man? How do we influence you guys, So that's why I had him on for that conversation. I think I might be scheduled to have a conversation with Hugh Ross in January. I remember interviewing Hugh Ross, and I'm sitting there disagreeing with him, and I'm like, okay, so what do we do here when we completely disagree about this? Never released this interview. I may not, but it was a good way for me to have a conversation with him. At the end, I said, can you just share with me the gospel? And he shared a beautiful gospel message. Beautiful. It was amazing. But the whole time I'm sitting there going, but you don't have a doctrine that can give you this gospel message and the reason for it being so beautiful. So it's frustrating to hear a William Lane Craig say young earth creationists are an embarrassment to Christianity. That's what he would say. He said that publicly. And I go, oh, come on. So I try to be cautious. I don't always get it right. If I love atheists and skeptics, well, surely I can love my old earth friends and colleagues, even though I completely disagree. And I want us to be held to truth. And so that's where I try to go. Was that a long way of not answering that question? I hope so. Okay, good.
One last question over here.
All right, sounds great.
Yeah, thank you. If you or I were talking to a knowledgeable, educated evolutionist, and we asked them, give me one piece of evidence that you feel is indisputable that supports evolution, what would he say or she say?
We don't have to ask. They've actually done it. There's a video out there called Evolution versus God where Ray Comfort goes around and he asks people, what's the best evidence? And he's asking the university professors. He asked P.Z. Myers, what's the best evidence? And he goes, oh, the stickleback fish. That was P.Z. Myers, the stickleback fish. And Ray goes, what did the stickleback fish turn into? And he goes, well, they're still sticklebacks. And they'll say, they'll try to, what they usually do is if they're a geologist, they'll point to biology. If they're a biologist, they'll point to astronomy. If they're astronomists, they'll point to the geologist. Everybody is pointing to somebody else thinking that's where the best evidence is. And it's like a shell game. Got the little P underneath the shell, and problem is there's no P. There is no evidence at all. So their best evidence, a lot of them would argue the moral argument. Well, evil exists, and if evil exists, then God cannot exist, because how could a good God allow evil and suffering in the world? And then, of course, the answer to that is, hang on. What is good? Evil is not something. Evil is not something. Evil is the absence of something. A donut hole is not a donut. It's the absence of the donut. Evil is the absence of good. The question you need to ask is, why is there good in the world? In a worldview of survival of the fittest, cutthroat, anything goes, why is there any good in the world? And how do you come up with the definition of good? It was the great writer C.S. Lewis who said, I was an atheist. But as an atheist, what got me to become a believer, what led me on that journey, what started me is I kept seeing all the evil in the world. And I had to ask myself, a man does not call a line crooked unless he has a straight line to compare it to. How was I coming to the conclusion that the world was crooked if I did not have in my mind the idea of a straight line? How do I know what is evil if I don't know what is good? That's the bigger question. The question we need to ask them is, no, not why is there evil? Why is there good? Why is there such a thing as good? You cannot get morality. Remember, moral laws, universal, immaterial, unchanging. You can't get those if you don't start with the universal, immaterial, unchanging God of the Bible. You must start with God, otherwise your worldview crumbles. Oh, I'd love to spend an hour right now going through the mind of the skeptic, a whole talk I give that is, I give you 5 questions to ask a skeptic, and at the end of that, they're done. I mean, they are complete. There is no, you don't wiggle out of it. It's straight jacket, and, try to be nice to them now, tickle, tickle. How do you like your intellectual straight jacket there, buddy? You can't go anywhere after these 5 questions. Anyway, I wish I had time to do that. Next time, I'll come back out here to your fine state of Washington. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Oh, Oregon, yeah, thank you. Oregon. What? Okay.
Again, thank you for